because you need to be able to multiply fractions before you can divide them. And we did multiplying fractions last week, so let's just have a look. So the first thing you should do is you to have a look at your fractions and see if there's anything you can reduce. Now it's saying here reduce one fraction. Now if you look at 10 and 20, we know they're both in the 10 times table, so we can divide both of those by 10. Now what we do is we cross out the 10 and say 10 divided by 10 is 1. Then you cross out the 20 and you say 20 divided by 10 is 2. So we've reduced that fraction now. So when you've done your reducing, you multiply the top numbers together and then you multiply the bottom numbers together. And that's your answer, 1/16. You should always check this answer to see if you can reduce it any more, because if you've done something wrong here, it doesn't really matter, you can put it right here. Right, so the second one, 9 and 27 we can divide by 9. That's 1 times 9, that's 3 times 9. And then we've got 1 times 1 is 1, 3 times 2 is 6. And then the bottom one, we can't reduce 2/3, but we can reduce 8 and 12 in the 4 times table. That's 2 times 4, that's 3 times 4. And then we've got 2 times 2 is 4 at the top, 3 times 3 is 9 at the bottom. Right, now sometimes you can reduce two fractions, so let's have a look at this. So if we look at 2 and 14, we can divide those by 2. So that's 1 times 2 and 7 times 2. And if we look at the other fraction, 12 and 16 are both in the 4 times table. So we can divide by 4. That's 3 times 4 and 4 times 4. And then we've got 1 times 3 is 3. And we've got 7 times 4 is 28. And then the next one, 14 and 21 divide by 7. That's 2 times 7 and 3 times 7. 8 and 12 we can divide by 4. That's 2 times 4, that's 3 times 4. Then we've got 2 times 2 is 4, and 3 times 3 is 9. And then the bottom one here. Now you can't reduce these fractions, but I hope you can remember you can do it diagonally. When you're multiplying, you can do either of the top numbers with either of the bottom numbers. So 7 and 21 are both in the 7 times table, so we can reduce it diagonally. We say that's 1 times 7 and that's 3 times 7. And then if you look the other way, 5 and 5, both in the 5 times table, that's 1 times 5 and that's 1 times 5. So we've got 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 3 is 3. So it's 1/3. Right, now sometimes you can do one normal one and one diagonally. So let's have a look at this. So 3 and 30 we can divide by 3. So that's 1 times 3 and 10 times 3. Now if you look diagonally, we've got 10 and 10. So we divide by 10, 1 times 10, 1 times 10. And then we've got 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 times 11 is 11. Right, now the next one, we can't reduce that fraction, but we can reduce this one in the 9 times table. That's 2 times 9, and that's 3 times 9. And if you look diagonally, we can't do that one, but we can do this one. We can divide by 2. So that's 1 times 2, and that's 1 times 2. Then we've got 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 3 is 3. And then the one at the bottom, we can't do this fraction, but these two are both in the 9s. That's 1 times 9, that's 4 times 9. And then if you look diagonally, we can divide by 4. That's 6 times 4, that's 1 times 4. And we've got 6 times 1 is 6, 11 times 1 is 11. Right, now one more thing here. It says reducing 3 because there's 3 things. When you're normally doing a multiplication sum, the way I do it is I check the first fraction, check the second fraction, then check the first diagonal, then check the second diagonal to see what I can reduce. So 10 and 15 are both in the 5s. So I say that's 2 times 5 and that's 3 times 5. If you look at the other fraction, 12 and 24 are both in the 12s. So that's 1 times 12 and that's 2 times 12. And then if I look diagonally, 2 and 2 I can divide by 2. So that's 1 times 2 and that's 1 times 2. And then what I'm left with is 1 times 1 at the top and 3 times 1 at the bottom. And then this one, 6 and 24 divide by 6. That's 1 times 6 That's 4 times 6. 4 and 22 I can divide by 2. That's 2 times 2. That's 11 times 2. And then I can't do 1 and 11, but if I go diagonally the other way, I can divide by 2. That's 1 times 2. That's 2 times 2. And then we've got 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 11 is 22. Right, so that's just reminding you of how to multiply fractions. Now, when you're dividing fractions, before you do any reducing or anything else, you need to write your sum out again. Now, the first fraction stays the same. Your divide sign changes into a multiplication sign, and then the second fraction is turned upside down. And then what you're left with is just a normal multiplication. So you just do it the way we've been doing already. So let's have a look at number 1. So remember, the first thing we're going to do is write this sum out again. So the first fraction, 4 over 28, stays the same. So you just write 4 over 28. Now my divide sign is going to change into a multiplication, like that. And then this fraction, 9 over 11, is going to get turned upside down. So instead of being 9 over 11, it's going to be 11 over 9. And then we just carry on like we've been doing before. So 4 and 28, I can divide by 4. That's 1 times 4, that's 7 times 4. I can't do anything with 11 and 9. I can't do anything with 1 and 9. I can't do anything with 7 and 11. So we multiply what we've got left. So we've got 1 times 11 is 11 at the top, and 7 times 9 is 63 at the bottom. Always check this to see if you can reduce it again. Let's see, there we are. Always check to see if you can reduce it. We can't do anything to that, so we just leave it there. 1163. Right then, now next one, we've got first fraction stays the same, so it's 5 over 11. Divide changes to times. Now this second fraction is not going to be 8 over 11 anymore, it's going to be 11 over 8. So 11 over 8. So let's see. We can't do anything with 5 and 11. We can't do anything with 11 and 8. We can't do anything with 5 and 8. But we can divide by 11 if we go diagonally that way. 1, 1. And then we've got 5 times 1 is 5. And 1 times 8 is 8. So that's 5 eighths. And then number 3 here, we've got 6 over 11. First fraction stays the same, times the second fraction upside down, which is 11 over 10. Can't do that, can't do that. Now 6 and 10 can be divided by 2. So that's 3 times 2. That's 5 times 2. And 11 and 11 can be divided by 11. That's 1 times 11, and that's 1 times 11. So that means I've got 3 times 1 is 3, and 1 times 5 is 5. So your answer is 3/5. Right, now we're just going to look at what happens if you get a fraction, your answer is improper or top heavy. So let's just do this. So we're doing it the same as before. First of all, write out your sum. So we've got 5 over 7 stays the same. Divide changes to times. Second fraction goes upside down, so it's 40 over 20. Right, I can't reduce that. 40 and 20 can be divided by 20. If you divided it by 10, you could sort it out when you get your answer, but let's just do that to make it easy. And then 5 and 11 we can't do, and 7 and 2 we can't do. So we work it out as before. So we've got 5 times 2 is 10. And at the bottom we've got 7 times 1 is 7. So the top number is bigger than the bottom number. So this means this fraction is improper, or top heavy, sometimes it's called. Now we don't leave them like this. We need to change it into a mixed number. So remember, this line in the middle means divide. So we're going to do 10 divided by 7. 10 divided by 7 is 1. And remainder 3. Now your remainder 3 goes at the top. The first number is your whole number, the remainder is at the top of the fraction, and the bottom number of the fraction always stays the same. So your answer is 1 3/7. Let's look at number 7. So first of all, we need to write the sum out again. 5/18 stays the same, divide changes to times, and the second fraction goes upside down. So it's 9 over 1. And then see what we can reduce. 5 and 18 we can't do, 9 and 1 we can't do, 5 and 1 we can't do, but 9 and 18 we can divide by 9. So we're going to say that's 1 times 9 and that's 2 times 9. Then we'll work it all out. So we've got 5 times 1 is 5. 2 times 1 is 2. Right, this fraction is top heavy, so we're going to do 5 divided by 2, which is 2, big 2. Remainder 1 at the top, 2 stays at the bottom. So your answer is 2.5. All right, and one more of these. So we've got question 8. So let's write our sum out. So we've got 32 over 40 times 6 over 3. Right, so we can reduce 32 and 40 in the 8 times table. So that's 4 times 8 and that's 5 times 8. And then 6 and 3 we can divide by 3. So we've got 2 times 3 and we've got 1 times 3. Now there's nothing we can do diagonally, so we just work it out now. So we've got 4 times 2 is 8 at the top and 5 times 1 is 5 at the bottom. So it's 8 over 5. That's top heavy, so we're going to say 8 divided by 5 is 1, so it's a big 1. Remainder 3 at the top, 5 stays at the bottom. 1 3/5. Okay, so that's all we're doing for the explanation today. Remember, when you're doing your homework, if you get stuck, you can watch this again and see if it helps you.